Tennessee's still waiting on Chaz Lanier, and it's feeling a little bit desperate while he's improving his standing in the college basketball community. BYU now reportedly in the mix. I think that's a leverage play. Good for him. I don't blame him. I think he wants more money. Caleb, you have a very strong take on Chaz Lanier, and that is Tennessee is too desperate for him. Am I verbalizing that correctly?
I think Tennessee, and I believe this because of what I've heard about the program themselves. They've held 3 scholarship spots open, and Rick Barnes hasn't tried to fill them. They put everything on trying to get Chaz Lanier. They put all of their stock on Chaz Lanier.
I was told they think there will be a couple of guys fall like dominoes if they get Chaz too. So they may be depending on Chaz even more than when you wrote that than you thought.
Yes. This is a gigantic mistake, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, Chaz Lanier, does Chaz Lanier add value to Tennessee? Absolutely. He brings more depth, and he also hit over 3 threes a game and was 44% from 3 last year. So, Dave, in college basketball, you can never have too many reliable shooters, right? Like, the more three-point shooters you have, the more you're going to take. But let me break down what Tennessee has right now, okay, going into next year. They have Zakai Ziegler at point. Let's just talk about their backcourt for a minute. Zakai Ziegler at point guard. They have Jordan Gainey coming back, and they have Cameron Carr, who by all accounts, Cameron Carr was so good, and the coaches were so in love with him. That's what forced Freddie DeLeon and DJ Jefferson into the transfer portal. So you have a 3-man rotation for the 2 guard spots. The wings, they have Darlington Dubar, who is their next Dalton Knecht, and then they have Jemai Meshack, and Meshack can move into the guard spot. Then in the post, they have Igor Milicic, Philos Opara, which is a better down-low post game than Jonas Adu and Toby Awaka, plus JP Estrella's developed. So they've already got an 8-man rotation right now that could easily be just as good as last year, if not better, because Igor Milicic can stretch the floor in a way Adu nor Awaka could. And also, Opara would never get worked by Zach Edey the way Adu was worked by Zach Edey under the basket last year. Okay, so that's where so already they're in a better position than last year. The only thing that they needed to make them better was to assure themselves that they could have a couple of extra players for depth. Chaz Lanier could be that. But if he's playing you like this, why spend all the time on him rather than just trying to find another couple of transfers that could fill those depth roles? And this is where I met with it. Chaz Lanier, and I want to bring this up. Chaz Lanier averaged, you want to know what he averaged before last year, Dave?
I would love to know what he averaged before last year because he's a come out of nowhere guy. I know somebody that covers preps in high school, and he's from Innsworth, and they didn't know who he was.
There you go. So at North Florida, he averaged 1.7 points, 4.5 points, and 4.7 points his first 3 years there. Now, he broke out and averaged 19.7 points this past year. Great. Lovely. That's awesome. Kudos to him. Very proud of him. I think
probably hit a growth spurt. I'd be willing to bet he hit a growth spurt.
That might be true. I can't confirm that for sure, but he's only 6'4", so what did he grow from? Is the question.
Well, when I say growth spurt, I hit a late growth spurt from like 18 to 20 in there, so I bet he put on a couple of inches after high school.
Okay, that might be true. And you're right. But that's very possible. But all I'm saying is that, okay, he averaged 19.7 points per game last year, shot 44% from 3. He could end up being very valuable. He could end up being a huge pickup for Tennessee, and he could end up being a go-to scorer. What if he and Darlington Dubar are just like a great combo? And by the way, if he is more reflective of last year, then he's the perfect fit for Rick Barnes, who, as you know, develops players when they arrive. So I'm saying this up front. You guys are all going to call me hypocritical. If he commits to Tennessee, I'm still going to say he's a big pickup. I'm still going to say he's a great pickup for Tennessee. What I'm saying is he was not worth putting all their eggs in a basket, given the fact that they already have a very stout roster, and the big thing they needed to focus on was depth. Because if they don't get him, they're now scrambling to fill a couple of scholarship spots, and they put a lot of eggs into the Chaz Lanier basket, and I didn't think he was worth the risk reward, honestly. I didn't think he was worth risking other transfers you could have picked up to get him, because of how stacked your roster already is, the depth you need, and the question surrounding whether or not he can maintain what he did last year.
All right, new poll question on board. and it has to do with Chaz Lanier. Here is the question. If Vols don't land Chaz, then that's fine. They're good. Big loss, a lot of stock in him. What do you say? I think I know. Probably the latter.
That's hot.
No, I actually, it's a former. That's fine. They're good. My problem is, they're good if they don't land him. But that's why they shouldn't have put so much stock in him. They should have put more stock in just to fill in their depth.
I don't like the starting five without him.
I do. You don't.
I think they need one more outside shooter. You like this team better than I do without him. I don't. The thing that made them different, Caleb, the thing that made them different is they could manufacture points because of Dalton Knecht. That's the bottom line. They could. And when they needed it, he was there. Maybe not as much as he could have been, but most of the time he was there. 99% of the time. One of the best, maybe the best players since I've been covering Tennessee in basketball for one season.
I think
if you don't have him, you're still going to go in those long scoreless streaks, and you're certainly not going to be an Elite 8 team. They don't make the Sweet 16 without Dalton Knecht.
See, this is where me and you break. I agree they don't make it without Dalton Knecht, but I also think players like Dalton Knecht are going to be a dime a dozen for Rick Barnes in the future because of this era of the transfer portal. And I think Darling Stone Dubar is the next Dalton Knecht. I think he is a clone of Dalton Knecht. And so I think they literally are just replacing him this year. I could be wrong, but I think they're just replacing Dalton Knecht. So they have that.
I think Chaz is the replacement.
No, Darling Stone Dubar is the replacement. Darling Stone Dubar is the wing that can move over to the 4. You're also missing the other part. Tennessee can go back to Rick Barnes, and this is something they haven't had in a while. They can go back to the old way Rick Barnes played, where Rick Barnes liked two bigs on the court, and the reason they can play that way is one of those bigs, Igor Milicic, he's a sharpshooter. So they can stretch the court with Milicic, Dubar, and either Gainey or Carr or Meshack, and then Ziegler running the point, and then they'll have Felix Opara to clean it up under the basket, and they can play 4 around the perimeter. They can play 4 out, 1 in the motion offense. And honestly, I think that'll be fine. The only thing they needed more than anything was depth, because they needed it. And this is where look, if they get Chaz Lanier, amazing. Congratulations. You got Chaz Lanier. But they this is like the NBA team that puts a lot of stock on winning the lottery to get the draft pick they want. And then they don't win the lottery. And then they're like, oh no.
May I throw this at you? Because you think Milicic is going to be fantastic as a stretch 4, right? He's going to be.
I think he's going to be the best stretch 4 in Tennessee history.
He's saying a lot. I mean, who is it now?
Well, stretch 4. Hey, Ron Slay could play at the top of the key, but I didn't consider him a stretch 4.
I love Ron, but he ain't a stretch 4. I mean, a stretch 4 gets out of the wing a little bit.
Yeah, there's no stretch 4 like.
Travis says Caleb's spot on, but I'm going the other way for just a second here, guys. When's the last time Rick Barnes had a great stretch 4?
Rick Barnes' last great stretch 4. I mean, there are guys that could stretch the floor at the 4, but guys that didn't play on the perimeter.
He's still playing in the NBA. A good
Grant Williams wasn't a stretch 4.
Yes, he was. He could go outside and shoot.
But no, there's a difference between being able to go outside and shoot and then the 4 that plays on the perimeter now. Like, we're talking about the Dirk Nowitzki era, where the big man plays from the
and he could play the power forward or center on the other side defensively. That makes him a power forward to me.
He played on the block though most of the time. Grant Williams was Ron Slay was as much of a stretch 4 as Grant Williams. They played mostly on the block, but they could play at the top of the key. No, Igor Milicic is actually going to play from the perimeter.
They have never had a guy, to my knowledge, at the 4 that is going to play on the perimeter and open up spacing. I can't think of one. Now, Ron Slay, those threes you're talking about, that was most oftentimes as a trailer on a fast break, correct?
Or when teams were playing zone because they tried to contain Ron under the basket, so they would set screens for him at the top of the key, and Ron Slay could just nail those threes from the top of the key. And by the way, Ron Slay will tell you the story. Georgia tried that on him one time, and he scouted it, and he figured it out. Big indictment against Buzz Peterson that Buzz Peterson didn't figure it out. Ron Slay called the strategy for himself.